I'm Davy. I'm awesome. And welcome to Davy's Awesome Movies, where I review the styles of movies that I love, the alternative B-rated cult style flicks. And not only is this a cult flick, but it led to a cult series of movies. This movie was released in 1990, and it was directed and co-written by Ron Underwood, produced and co-written by Brent Maddock and S.S. Wilson, made by No Frills Productions and Pacific Western Productions, and distributed by Universal Pictures. Can you feel that, ladies and gentlemen? Tremors. The movie opens with two hired hands out in the middle of a desert in a place called Perfection, Nevada, which no is not a real place, arguing over whose turn it is to make breakfast. We have Earl, played by the late, frickin' great Fred Ward. Rest in peace. Saying that the day before, he had made over easy eggs, so it's now Val's turn.
The hell you did? Bologna and beans. It's your turn.
Val is played by Kevin Bacon, which, you know, if this movie's got bacon, it's going to be good. But I will say, Val, if you really made bologna and beans the day before for breakfast, then it's your turn again. That's not breakfast. Don't get me wrong, I'm nothing against bologna and beans, but it's not breakfast. After they have their breakfast, which I hope he didn't make bologna and beans again, they head out to their first job. But first, they stop to check out the new grad student in the area, who is studying the ground because she is a seismologist.
Well, I've been getting some really strange readings.
Don't worry, Rhonda. You'll see what that's all about. Then they go about doing their odd jobs, which is what they do. And while they are pumping a septic tank, they are talking about leaving this town of Perfection with a population of 14 and heading to the next town, Bixby. That's not a real town either. But either way, this town is so small and hard to live in that Earl is talking about how he is just so close to leaving.
How close?
That close. So after they wipe all that poopy off themselves, they pack up and head out to Bixby until a neighbor, Nancy, stops them and offers them a month worth of work with free lunches and beer. So what are you guys going to do now?
I can't believe we said no to free beer.
I know someone who wouldn't.
Beers!
But on their way out, they see someone up in a tower whom they know. Which I imagine in a town of 14 people, who they know is everyone. This neighbor is Edgar, and they go to see why he's up in the tower.
Edgar, get your butt down from there!
They assume he just must be drunk, so Val goes up to get him. But when Val gets to Edgar... Oh, he not drunk. He dead. They, of course, get Edgar down, get him to a doctor. The doctor says, though, he died of dehydration.
You mean he sat up there 3 or 4 days? He sat up there and just died of thirst?
So, of course, instead of investigating this at all, they just decide to continue on course to Bixby. But then they notice something at another neighbor's house, their neighbor Fred, who has a sheep ranch.
What?
Someone ate all the lamb chops. I guess that song does end. They also find Fred.
Ah, Jesus!
After losing his sheep, Fred went heads up. Or down. They leave to go find somebody to report this, because remember, this is way before everybody had cell phones. And on the way, they warn a couple of construction guys.
What? A murderer, man, a real psycho! He's cutting people's heads off!
If I was one of those construction guys, I'd take the warning and leave. Be like, hey boss, guess I'm calling it a day. But instead, they're just like, meh, brush it off and get back to work. That should inspire you to leave, because that's definitely not oil. Whatever that is underneath them, it drags the construction worker away. Later comes after the other one. Which now begs the question. These guys got hazard pay, right? Earl and Val make it back to the only store in this town, Walter Chang's.
Leave it. I need one of those candy bars. I believe this. The phone is dead.
Why'd you put a quarter in that? 911 is a free call. So, since the phone lines are down everywhere in that town, they decide they now have to get to Bixby so they can call the police. But thanks to this monster and the construction workers being killed, the road to Bixby is blocked. So their only choice is to head back to Walter Chang's. But they get stuck for a moment. Just a moment, though. When they get unstuck, they get back to Walter Chang's and see what they got stuck on.
Oh, Bert, be careful.
Bert Gummer notices. Bert Gummer is played by Michael Gross. And Bert Gummer is the most awesome character in any movie that has ever existed. He is the only character that is in all the Tremors movies. Up until the last one.
Snake. Some kind of mutation.
Yeah.
That's Heather, Bert's wife, played by Reba McEntire. At least in this movie. Then we go to the doctor from before and his wife on their property where they are building a house. I don't have anything against small towns, but you're not going to convince me to go build a house in a town of 14 people. Okay, maybe you will, because that means almost no neighbors. I guess that house isn't getting finished. His wife runs into their station wagon. Well, she'll be safe. Never mind. Back at Walter Chang's, Bert and Heather say they should just arm themselves and fight these things off. Because Bert. But the other feel like they really just need to get to Bixby and call the police. They can't drive there, the phone lines are down. Heck, even these hillbillies and their CB radios can't get out of the valley. So one of the residents, Nestor, suggests they go by horse. Walter has horses. But who are the best horse riders? Well, at least you guys get to go to Bixby. As they're getting ready to leave...
Got me!
That's Melvin.
Damn it, Melvin!
No one likes him. Apparently not even his parents, because they're not in the movie. Apparently they filmed scenes to explain where his parents were, that they just left him with people, but they left it out because it's believable that they would just leave. Val and Earl head to Bixby's, but first they decide to stop at the doctor's property and warn him and his wife. And then they find out that not only were they too late, but these snakes are a lot more powerful than they originally expected. So they hoof it, pun intended, on these horses to Bixby. Until something spooks the horses and they get bucked off. And it's then we finally see one of these monsters. Big, huge worm-like monsters. The snakes are basically their tongues. Val and Earl have no choice but to run, but this thing is gaining on them until they head into a ravine that was concreted in. While they're in the ravine, they get a little guest.
What's going on? Did you notice anything weird a minute ago?
Define weird. They dig around this monster to get a better look at the whole thing. Basically, like I said, a giant worm. And it makes me wonder if Harry and Lloyd would have sold that at I Got Worms. But then Rhonda deduces something from her seismographs. Based on the patterns, she is determined that there are 3 more. And then they notice one. So to avoid it, they run over and climb onto one of these giant rocks in the middle of the area. These things are strong, they're fast, but they can't break through rock. But now the problem, these things know enough to not leave. They determine that they can feel the vibration of them on that rock, so they're not going anywhere. They're stuck on that rock all night long. So in the morning, Earl and Val go about coming up with a plan to get off those rocks and get to Rhonda's truck. While they're doing that, Rhonda finds some poles at the base of the rock.
You guys know how to pole vault!
Pole vaulting's an Olympic sport. I doubt it's really that easy to just figure it out. But apparently it is that easy. They all get a pole and pole vault from rock to rock to rock until they get to Rhonda's truck. So if it really is that easy for somebody who's never done it before, maybe it shouldn't be an Olympic sport. But when they finally get to Rhonda's truck, you just got slapped. Rhonda desperately speeds off out of there.
Could somebody perhaps help me?
Seriously, it's not going to help you if you escape the worms, but roll this truck. They get back to Walter Chang's and start telling everybody how dire the situation really is. But Walter himself is just more concerned with giving a name to these creatures.
Graboid! That's it, Graboid!
And there you have it. These big worm creatures are graboids. Some people have asked, why didn't they just call the movie Graboids? Probably because Tremors is more appealing. Rhonda comes up with a plan that they need to head to the mountains because those are made of granite and they won't be able to get them. And then they can just hike to Bixby and get help.
Be safe there, and we could hike along them all the way to Bixby.
Melvin's a turd. But a couple minutes later... But when they go to finally give Melvin the beating he deserves...
Melvin, get you!
They run inside, get very still and very quiet. but they can hear Nancy's daughter outside, Mindy, on her pogo stick. Seriously, those toys suck. Get something better. Hated pogo sticks. Maybe because I couldn't really do much with them. A second graboid is coming, and Rhonda trips. So now she's trapped in the barbed wire. Val comes over to help her.
None of your pants!
So she takes off her pants and gets out of the barbed wire. Well, that's one way to get them off. They are now able to get inside and, of course, get Rhonda some pants. And they start working on a plan. Until...
Turn it off!
But if you do that, the sodas will get warm.
I got it.
Too late. He survived David Lopan, but even Jack Burton couldn't have saved him from this. So now they have to get to the roof. Rhonda didn't make it.
Hey!
Oh, can't say she's not resourceful. So now that everybody is on the roof, Heather and Bert, who ironically enough were out looking for Rhonda to warn her, are now back at their home. And Bert and Heather go into their basement, get on their CB radio, and start trying to get a hold of somebody to find out what's going on. Why is everybody on the roof? So naturally they reach down, grab Walter's CB, and start communicating to Bert to get on their roof. But at that moment, as they're telling them this in their basement,
Jesus Christ!
everyone hears this and is sad for a moment. But this is Bert! Bert and Heather were more than prepared for this. By the way, I want that wall. And I want this gun too. Damn, Bert!
We killed that mother humper! Come back!
They dubbed over to say Mother Humper, like they reshot, changed, and dubbed some of the other bad language in this movie because the bad language had gotten this movie an R rating, and they really wanted to get it to PG-13 so they could get better distribution. I'd say, 90s, but nowadays it's even worse. They, of course, inform Bert and Heather that there are two more, so they need to get up on their roof, but they also inform everybody else that they got one.
Way to go, dudes! Hooray!
Yahoo!
We don't care if you get it.
But now Bert tries to pick off another.
You didn't get penetration even with the elephant gun.
The things are tough enough as it is to get through ground and everything too. Not only that, but the graboids start working on knocking over the homes. Now he desperately needs to get off the ground. And at 10 years old when I saw this, I stopped playing with tires. They come up with an idea. If they can get to the bulldozer across the way and connect it to a trailer, they can slowly but surely get everybody to solid rock. But they need a distraction. Luckily, Miguel has that covered. So Val runs for it until the tractor tips over. I know in this moment, your natural instinct is to start peeing, but don't. Since the graboids are surrounding and looking for Val, the others are trying to desperately distract it and get it away from him. Rhonda comes up with an idea to do just that. So Val makes it to the bulldozer. While Val gets to the bulldozer, connects the trailer, and is going around and getting everybody, Bert and Heather were making bombs. Because Bert. So now they are on the bulldozer, connected to a trailer. It's too heavy for the graboids to do anything, even though they're following. And they're going to make it to safety. But then the graboids start working on something.
Wait, look out!
Maybe they're not so dumb. They are also working on burying the bulldozer and trailer so they can get to their food. So they come up with a plan. They throw some of Bert's bombs. And the explosions basically make the graboids go nuts. That's too much vibration for them to handle. And from there, they're able to head to some boulders in the middle of the desert again. However, unlike the ones before, these boulders, there's not like a chain of them. It's isolated. So they now determine the only way they are going to survive is they're going to have to kill these graboids. Earl comes up with an idea to go fishing.
What kind of fuse is that? Cannon fuse.
What the hell you use it for?
A cannon.
Bert So they light the fuse, throw it out, drag it a little bit, and... But now they got one more. Oh no. Even worse. No one is hurt, but Val, Rhonda, and Earl get knocked off of the rock. They're now away from it. They gotta get back. They've only got one bomb left. So to get away from the graboid and get back to the rock, Earl and Rhonda want Val to throw the bomb. But Val determines that if they do that, they're just going to be stuck on that rock until they all die. So Val gets a plan. Val takes off, knowing this is going to lure the graboid away. He runs and runs and runs till he gets to the edge of the ravine and throws the bomb so the explosion will disorient the graboid. And then... And down! Now the graboids are gone and dead. They gotta go to Bigsby and report all this. And of course they're talking about how they're gonna be famous. But before any of that, Val has something to say to Rhonda. So there you have it. That's the 90s awesome classic movie, Tremors. Movie that spawned 6 other sequels. All of them good, but I will say none of them were as good as this one. Probably because this was the only one with bacon. It had success as it had a $6.4 million budget and did around $16.7 million in its initial box office release. So it made money, they were happy, but at first not as happy as they wanted to be. They didn't consider it much of a success. But as soon as this movie got to video, it blew up. It became one of the most rented videos of the year 1990. That's how I saw it. My personal story on it, I didn't even want to see it. Wasn't my kind of thing. My brother and our friend Ken wanted to see it, so I kind of got dragged into it, but I instantly got hooked. It is such a good movie. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I am always down to watch Tremors. The original name of the movie, though, was supposed to be Land Sharks, but then they ditched that when Saturday Night Live did a skit called Land Sharks, and they came up with a different name, Beneath Perfection, before landing on Tremors. I think Tremors is probably the best one. It has a ring to it. The thing about it is even though it didn't get much of a theater run, most critics really liked this movie. Most audiences really like this movie. In fact, most people feel the underperformance at the box office was due to poor advertisement. Which I gotta agree, because I will say that, until it came on video, my brother decided to watch it because it was a monster movie. He was interested. I wasn't, because this kind of monster movie usually doesn't appeal to me. But I will say this, I don't remember ever seeing one commercial for Tremors. Not one. In fact, the only trailer I've ever seen for Tremors was on the DVD I own. Funny enough, Kevin Bacon was very depressed when this movie came out. He really thought this movie was going to ruin his career with how it underperformed. He also admitted at the time this movie was coming out, he was very depressed, he was under a lot of pressure, his wife was about to have their first child, and again, he was just really upset about its underperformance. However, he has later gone on to say that he now loves this movie. In fact, he has said in an interview, most of his movies he's only seen once, some of them he's never seen and doesn't intend to. He's seen Tremors at least 12 times. I beat your own record of seeing this movie in the first year, but still says it's now one of his favorite movies that he's ever done. In fact, he remembers it fondly for the fun he had on set. And it not only worked out for him, but it was Reba McEntire's film debut. From there, she went on to make a few more films here and there, eventually got her own show, Reba, which was a big hit. They apparently didn't want to cast her at first because they felt it would have been gimmicky to have her in this, being that she was a country music star. But she auditioned for the part of Heather, and they said, you know what? We can't find anything better. It worked out for Michael Gross, who played Bert! Because not only was he in all the other Tremors movies, but it was a good job to come out for him, as he literally went on to start filming this the day after he filmed the very final episode of Family Ties. Funny enough, though, Brent Maddock, one of the writers and producers, said that when he was originally writing this, the guys he envisioned playing Bert would have either been Chuck Norris or Clint Eastwood. First of all, they didn't have the money for either of those two at the time. And secondly, whereas I can't see Chuck Norris being Bert, Clint Eastwood, sure, but I think that would have been a little overkill. I think Michael Gross added something great to the character. Honestly, Bert is like my favorite character in any movie ever existed, and I think it couldn't have been as great without somebody like Michael Gross bringing what he did to that character. Some other almost casting choices. Originally, Pat Morita was asked to play Walter Chang, but he was still off the success of the Karate Kid movies and was asking for more money than they had to give. Victor Wong, however, was willing to do it for what they could afford in the budget. To play Earl, their first choice was Jack Palance, but they were too afraid to reach out to him at the time. Another person they had also considered was Jon Voight before landing on Fred Ward, which Earl was another great character. He was in the second movie as well, and I don't think anybody could have done it better than Fred Ward. Rest in peace. Some of the other actors they had in mind to play Val were Bill Paxton, Matthew Modine, Bruce Campbell, and Ray Liotta. Honestly, I think pretty much any of those guys could have been great as Val, but I think it went to the right person. Kevin Bacon brought something to that character. So as much as he was upset about it at first, he did great. And it didn't just work out for these actors. The success of this film led to Billy Crystal reaching out and hiring Ron Underwood to direct the movie City Slickers, which was a big movie in its time. However, I would say it did not compete to the cult success of Tremors. Another thing I love, though, is in this movie and all the others, they never actually explain where these graboids come from. They give you theories in the movie, but nobody knows for sure. Have they just been around since prehistoric ages? Are they some mutated kind of species? Are they aliens, which is suggested in some of these scripts? But they never answer that, and they did that on purpose. However, the studio wanted them to film a scene where they explained that they were aliens, where Bert and Heather find UFO remains and eggs. So the writers, to make the studio happy, they wrote the scenes, pitched the scenes to the rest of the cast and crew, and everybody agreed unanimously that it was terrible. Better to leave it a mystery. Which is great because, sometimes the question is more important than the answer. However, I just personally love this movie because, again, I always love it when a movie that normally I wouldn't be that interested in grabs me. Like, I'm not very into natural disaster movies, but if I find one that grabs me, it becomes a great movie to me. In this case, I'm not really into these type of big, huge monsters, but this one grabbed me for some reason. I watched it under protest. I didn't want to watch it, but I sat there, and a few minutes into it, I'm hooked. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Tremors, because I honestly don't know. Can't tell you how many times I've seen all the sequels, because I honestly don't know. They're the kind of movies that are like comfort movies to me. I just want to watch them whenever I can. So based on that, I definitely highly recommend that if you have not seen Tremors, that you get on it, get out there, and go watch Tremors. Such a great movie. So there you have it. That's my movie review this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notifications when I post new videos. And leave a comment that I can answer in the next comment corner. Tell me what you thought of Tremors. Tell me if the first one's your favorite or if one of the sequels was your favorite. Love you guys.